Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for a discussion on the wonderful film District of Second Chances. District of Second Chances explores second look laws, particularly here in Washington, D.C., through the stories of our three wonderful panelists today, Jean Downing, Coley Long, and Anthony Pete Petty. We're also joined today by the film's filmmaker, director, and producer, Wynette Yao. My name is Daniel Landsman, and I'm the Vice President of Policy for FAM. I'll give full introductions to our guests here now, starting with Wynette Yao. Wynette is an award-winning filmmaker who has produced, directed, and written films on a wide array of subjects. She relishes image making and storytelling that brings alive the human experience behind history, science, modern life, and takes pride in directing powerful, intriguing images from behind the camera. She's my wonderful colleague at FAM and again, the great director behind the film that we're here to talk about today. Anthony Pete Petting has been on a profound journey of transformation. After spending 30 years behind bars, he has emerged as a beacon of hope and inspiration in the reentry field. Incarcerated at 16, Anthony is a testament to the power of resilience, personal growth, and the unwavering pursuit of positive change. As a youth mentor and program manager for Violence Interruption Program, Anthony plays a pivotal role in creating safer communities. His work involves preventing violence and guiding young people towards positive alternatives and opportunities for personal growth. His remarkable journey from incarceration to community change maker is an inspiring example for those he mentors. Jean Downing is a Washington, D.C. Native and a returning citizen who has served 21 years in prison after being arrested at 19. After his release due to the Second Look Amendment Act, he was selected as Free Minds 2022 Congressman John Lewis Fellow. Jean is currently the Galena Yorktown Fellow at the Center for Court Excellence, where he leads an initiative called the Second Chance Hiring Alliance. He's a community outreach specialist for Free Minds Book Club and Writing Workshop. Finally, we have Coley LeVar Long, known to his friends as Shaka. Coley was sentenced to life without parole in 1998 for a violent offense as a youth offender and was denied release under the Second Look Amendment Act. He was released under parole in July 2022 after serving more than 26 years of incarceration. Coley joined Georgetown's Prison and Justice Initiative as a program associate, where he supports program administration, returning citizens, and prison scholars at the DC jail. He's a published author, speaker, and criminal justice reform advocate. From 2022 to 2023, he was also my colleague here at FAM as a Justice Reform Fellow. So thank you all for joining us for tonight's panel, and thank you to everyone at home listening in. Wynette, I'd like to start with you. Some of this pops up in the film, as you can see from the masks, but what were some of the greatest challenges in putting this film together?
Right. Well, you put your finger on it. COVID was the obvious challenge. We did our first filming with Pete in June 2021. And as we all recall, dimly, those dark times, COVID was coming and going. And so lots of times we would set things up and then it would be canceled because of COVID. Or people were just reluctant to meet or took safety measures like covering their entire face with a mask, which sometimes made it hard to communicate. But I think in the larger sense, the challenge was, as with any documentary, and also the great thing about documentaries, when you start filming, you don't know what's going to happen. And Pete was out, so we knew he would stay out and we could follow his journey. But for Jean and for Coley, we had no idea what was going to happen, as they were in the same boat. And in fact, someone we started to film with did not make it out. And the thing is, when someone is stuck behind bars, as we all know, it's very hard to communicate with them. So you can talk about them, you can try to fill in their story, but it's very hard for them to speak for themselves and then for the audience to feel for them. So I think that was the biggest challenge. And fortunately, as you can see tonight, everyone got out.
Yeah. And I will say, challenges aside, you all executed this film expertly. I may be a biased opinion there, but congratulations. I want to turn it over to the stars now for Jean, Pete, and Coley. How was the experience of having your story documented, especially given the circumstances that Wynette described in her last answer. What was that experience like?
I know for me, it was very, it was different coming from the places that we came from. Just to have someone with a camera following you around in your face, and I'm a very private person. I like to stay to myself a lot, so it was kind of rough. But one thing I say, Travis is the one that they made me feel comfortable. It was a lot of like with the work that I do as a credible messenger. It was a lot of like uh a lot of, I would say, like stop signs right there, whereas though we couldn't really show too many of the kids, but that was like one of the most important things I wanted to show, like some of their plots and their lives and things of that nature. So it was kind of hard for me with some of that stuff, but I wanted them, just for them to see that, okay, the things that I was doing, it'd be easier for them if they, follow my lead, do some of the stuff that I was doing, just letting them know that change was possible. So that was one of the best things that I really liked about it, though. It was kind of hard because I was a private person, though.
Yeah, I guess second what Anthony said. For so long, we grew up trying to avoid cameras, and then you suddenly stress in a position where a lot of intimate aspects of your life, is being recorded. But at first I was kind of hesitant, but then like Anthony said, I noticed I am kind of like a ham that I enjoyed the spotlight a little bit, but it was, but seriously, I'm grateful for the opportunity because it give a chance to show the personalities that who we truly are versus what it was, what people have written about us in our case files or the newspapers or that type of thing. And it's indicative to other people that's similar to God, the men and women that we serve time with, casting light on them too. So I was very grateful for it. It took at first, like I say, it was a acquired taste, but I'm grateful for it.
Yeah, I echo Coley and Anthony's sentiments. I mean, it was a unique experience. Like, for myself, when I went to prison at 19, other than a couple of juvenile short stints, I have never like did a stretch of time and then had to come home and readjust to society. So having that alone was something that I had to focus on, and to have, as Anthony said, like cameras in your face, as soon as you get released or get off the bus. The first thing I really thought was like, well, I know a lot of people won't experience this, right? Like a lot of people that I know that's coming behind me, like well, their transition would be a little different than mine because I have cameras following me everywhere I go. And it was only a little bit challenging, only because as open of a book that I was in terms of being filmed, not everybody that was in my circle was as open. Some of my family members, they questioned, why do we need to talk more about this, or why do we? And I had to try to explain to them, how to make a film, like if I know how to make a film, and so like trying to juggle being open, being available, but also trying to convince my family like this is for the good, made it a little challenging. But for the most part, it was an experience that I would not trade in for the world.
Well, thank you all. And before I get to the next question, to our viewers watching live across YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, you are able to send in questions. And if we have time at the end, we'll go to some questions from our viewers. So we've got some of my colleagues who are tracking that and able to share some of your questions. Now, understanding that a couple of you have noted that you tend to be private people, sort of understanding that, it's impossible to include everything about a person in a film, as impactful and sort of in-depth this film is. Is there anything about your stories that maybe didn't make the final film that you want folks sort of watching at home to know? Anything about you that you'd like to add?
I can go first. So for me, I mean, people know that I do spoken word, but I think that one of the things or how it was captured kind of left out the level of experiences and successes that my spoken word has gotten me since I've been home. So I would want people to know, like, there is power in words. My spoken word had gotten me to see the president give a presidential address, and I was only home maybe 2 months at the time. I've spoken at numerous colleges due to my spoken word and my I don't like to call it motivational speaker because I don't want to motivate people. I want to galvanize people. So I've spoken at Georgetown and I've spoken at Yale, and I highlight Yale because that was probably the most improbable place that I thought I'll ever be speaking and doing poems at. And so I think that certain levels of success in that short period of time, because I've only been home today a little over 2 years, that I think that that's something that I would want people to know, that not only myself, but people like Coley, Anthony, and a plethora of guys who are not in the film, in the short time of being back into society, the level of successful things that we've accomplished, I think that is something that we would all want people to know about.
I think for myself, it was so much to cover, right? But and go back to what Gene kind of touched on. I would have loved the audience to see the moment where the reconciliation between me and my father and I, that really didn't, due to the fact, like you say, my family are like ultra conservative, quiet, private people, and especially my dad, like I think that's that would have been like a marquee moment, I think, because like we tested a little bit about my tumultuous relationship with my father, and how abusive he was, and how that kind of altered my trajectory. But we didn't really have, due to my father and I want, like I say, they're not a very social like public people. So, but I definitely would have liked the audience to see like the relationship that I have with my dad now versus the relationship I had back then.
I would say for me, like I said earlier, I would have liked for them just to see some of the work that I do. For the simple fact, people heard like labels, mental at-risk youth and things that nature, So I want you to see who these people are instead of just the labels that there's placed on them. So I wanted them to see like the work that I do, to going into schools, going to the youth facilities, sitting down with the youth that's committing some of the crimes that we see today, and just showing, highlighting that they're just still kids. And that's just something that I would always wish was in the film. We did show a little bit of some of my work, but it didn't show, like, to me, the meat of the work that I really do when I'm sitting down talking to a group of kids from the ages of 13 to 15. All of them have murder charges or carjacking or some of the most violent charges, and just sitting down and listening them be or watching them be kids, get a better understanding of some of the things that they're doing, explaining to me why they did some of the stuff that they did. So that was like one of the most missed out opportunities. I feel as though we couldn't do some of the filming. So I that's what I wish we did more.
Thank you. Thank you all for your answers and for sharing a little bit more about yourselves with us here today. There's so many incredible moments in this film. I mean, just to name a few, Gene coming home and seeing you with your family, the sit down with Pete and Coley at Ben's Chili Bowl, which made my mouth water. And Coley, I'm with you. I finish everything on my plate. Pete, you didn't have to call him out like that. We can't all do 500 burpees on our birthday. Certainly, I can't. But I'm curious. As you guys get to see your stories unfold across this hour and 17 minutes, what were your favorite parts of the film?
I go first. My favorite part of the film was when I seen Shaka walking down towards me, because people don't understand when you grew up around people in those carceral places like that, and some of the things that we go through, and just to see a person who you love and respect, be granted his freedom, it feels so good. It's like you're getting your own freedom again. So when we sitting down there, we talking, but in my mind, I'm thinking about when we was on ball fields and playing football or at the basketball, and I'm saying to myself, okay, now we're here. That was one of the most beautiful parts for me of the film.
I think for myself, that was a good scene, but I think the scene I really enjoyed watching the documentary was watching Gene eat that cake, and that was Gene, he got a personality, but it was real. Anybody that's formerly incarcerated, did a long stretch of time, come home and something simple as a piece of cake, it's an out there cake, Yeah, it was funny, just seeing Gene's reaction because it's relatable, and hugging his sister, that was, it sent the shiver down my spine, we all know that feeling, man. So it was good watching Gene and his getting acclimated back in society, especially at the cake. That was good.
Yeah, thanks, bro. That's crazy because my favorite part of the film is actually Coley's whole entire story. And because I knew the story, but what made it really like the best part for me is because it left you in so much suspense because he was the only one out of us three who was initially denied. And I don't think people would have even gotten the chance to even witness that people do get denied IRA, right? But what really made it my favorite part was because my entire family was concerned. They did not even realize that Coley was released. If they missed the whole thing, they didn't realize he was released until they saw him on the stage doing the what we're doing now. And so even after, like my sister still, she like, so when did he come home? Because I thought he was still, and I was like, I had to explain it to her. I had to explain it to my daughter. And thanks to you, Coley and Anthony, my daughter wants to go to Ben Chili Bowl. She never been there. She's like, I want to go where they was at to get that milkshake. And I was like, okay, I'll take you to Ben Chili Bowl. But that was really my favorite part because to show that someone could be denied. Because I used to always tell myself, I don't know what I'll do if I got denied, right? And to see him do that and still strive, still keep his head together, still, look forward, because we all know what happens when you get denied. You got to wait 3 years and you can appeal, but that is a daunting task when you already had your mind set to be released. So to see that, and then to be able to have my family feel a certain kind of way, like they were genuinely happy for you, probably more happy for you than they were for me. And so that right there showed me that, like, people's stories can be that compelling. And so that's why I think that was my favorite part of the whole film.
Thank you so much, and I co-sign all of that. Those were great scenes, and Coley, we're so glad you got home, and that was that was a great part of the movie. Even though I knew I worked with you, I knew the ending. A little spoiler alert. It was still great to relive that. And I want to switch gears a little bit to talk about sort of the core of FAM's work and part of the impetus for why we got to this, which is advocacy and creating change beyond DC. But before I do, I want to give a quick reminder to our viewers that we will be able to, at the end, address some viewer questions. So if you have any, put them in the comments of wherever you're watching. So, you all are involved in advocacy of your own, is it, whether it's through Georgetown or Pete, the work you are doing in DC, and Gene through the Center of Court Excellence. We may have a lot of people who are tuning in today who were inspired by the story they saw in this film and want to get started in their own advocacy, be it for their loved ones, maybe they're formerly incarcerated and have people still inside who they care about and know they should become home and want to get engaged in advocacy. What advice do you have for viewers who are looking to start an advocacy journey? Where should they start? How do they get involved? What would your recommendations be?
I'll go first. Honestly, I would believe that if the film sparked that fire for advocacy, and want to get you, you don't have to just necessarily go in a grassroots movement on yourself. Like join, join FAM, or family. And I know that's like they didn't pay me to say this. I'm just saying this, but I'm not literally, because one of like Daniel mentioned, like when I was offered the Justice Fellows, the fellowship, and being able to really see what FAM do, and being invited to go on Capitol Hill to see, just being part of the board member and see how they every Monday, it's a labor of love for them, how they labor for the storytelling, the newsletters, how they go back and forth with, congressman people, and they give and take, it's like, it's really a labor of love. So, you don't have to, I don't think you have to reinvent the wheel, man, sign up with FAM, get a part of the newsletters, reach out, and they can help guide you, to your state representative and whatnot. But I think that's the one big task it's too big for one individual. I think you get a lot done by joining a community, and there's already a community in place for that. So that would be my advice.
I know for me, one of my advice would be something that I truly believe in. I would say, do not let today's society kill your humanity. And the reason why I say that, because a lot of times we look at the news, or we're hear some podcasts, and they may speak of how today's society is very violent and these things are going on. But we got to always remember that, everybody is not the same. Some people structures, the way they was raised is different, and they didn't have a lot of the programs and things of that nature that a lot of other people have. So I will always want people to always remember that, and by you remember that, you won't always want to help someone else. So, and as Coley said, it's so many programs that you can help. Even if you just got to pass out flyers, even if you got to go sit down and help tutor a kid who don't have a tutor, but they want to do good in school. So I think that's one of the most, just always remember your humanity, because it's very hard during this time.
Yeah, and I would say in today's climate, right, all across the country, criminal justice, sentence reform, prison reform is really at an all-time high. Whether it's being met with a bunch of challenges and opposition, nonetheless, you can look anywhere and you will find advocacy groups. So I think that the easiest way to get involved, and it's probably the craziest thing I'm gonna say, because you would probably expect for me to say this, but the internet. Like nowadays, you can go on Google and just Google advocacy groups in DC, advocacy groups in New England, advocacy groups in New York, and they will pop up. And then often it would lead you to your local legislators, because at the end of the day, you can advocate all you want, but that's where it all culminates at, like at the legislation. You can reach out to your local legislators and find out, though, that's your research spot, find out who is for reform and who isn't. Obviously, the people who are for reform are the ones you want to reach out to and find out more information, and the ones who aren't, just don't. They will be the ones that's going to meet you once you get into your role as an advocate. These are going to be the ones that's going to meet you to try to stop your progress. But so do pay attention to them as well. But I think that that's probably one of the simplest things. And if you know anybody who is already in programs like Anthony and Carly had just talked about, right? If you know anybody who's incarcerated, because chances are, though we don't know everything, somebody incarcerated knows something that's going on out here, right? They might don't know who and how many moves they're making, but they can say, oh, I know this organization is doing something. So there's a plethora of avenues that you can go to get into the fight. But my biggest thing is once you get into the fight, keep fighting, because you're not fighting in vain. You have so many guys that are incarcerated and women who are incarcerated who not only belong on this side of the wall, but they'll make this side of the wall better. Right. I think that since I've been home, at least I like to believe that I made, the people around me better as I made myself better. And I think I can speak for Coley and Pete in the same regard. So I think that that's probably one of the best and easiest ways to get involved. Just do your research.
Thank you all. And I kind of want to keep going on this train of thought. In addition to people new to advocacy or haven't even started yet, I imagine we have folks watching who've been doing advocacy work for years, and they're trying to capture the success we had with IRA and the Second Look Amendment Act. And so, taking that a step further to the people who are sort of on the cusp, what sort of lessons can they learn from IRA and the Second Look Amendment Act for their own state and their own, advocacy campaigns? What lessons can they learn from the success we've had in DC?
I think from DC is kind of unique how progressive for the aspect of how they've been like progressive and having the openness, the willingness, have a discussion about expanding, expansion, and also like understanding like how our criminal justice system is just so punitive and retributive, and trying to find like a meaningful balance that really contributes to justice, because when how is justice truly being served? Yes, when people make bad choices and it cause harm, yes, there must be a factor of accountability, right? But when evidence comes in that this person is no longer that same individual, and and contextualize that what makes this person like so many young people that comes from undersourced community, their actions they always focus on what they do, but they never focus on why people do the things that they do. And all these things are taken in consideration, and people have served over 20 some years, and you have a history that, this person is no longer like a defendant, what I'm saying, or a offender, but he has an honest desire to be a contributor to a community that he once hurt. We need to, those things need to be, like Anthony said, there need to be a modicum of humanity injected in these laws that they're putting down. So I think that, like, seeing from the success that we have, and one is key, is that the community, we have a strong support group for the returning citizens. We also have a strong support group that people that help write those legislations to get it activated. So I think that's one of the key things that people can learn from. Is like, understanding, these the lives that these people, that made these choices that they made, and building a community about them that will include them, in that community, and that's how we need to, position these lawmakers, to write these legislations to make it more inclusive, to people that really want to contribute to the community.
I know for me, Cody kind of like touched on one of the things that I believe. I believe one of the most important things for us is community. We have a community of individuals who believed in us. And let me say this, me, Cody, and Gene, we're not the only ones, but the thought process and the way that we are, the things that we're doing, the success that we're having in society. You have a whole justice system filled with guys who believe the same way we believe and want to do some of the work that we do. So I think with the advocacy and the community amongst ourselves, that's one of the most important things I think every community should have, because in DC we're looked at as returning citizens. We just been away, as my little niece said, I've been away to college and I just came back. I just had I failed college a long time, So I'm just coming back, but I'm a returned citizen, and we have a society within Washington D.C. who really believes in us. They give us a chance. Some of the chances, they're not the best chances, but they give us chances, and I believe that's one of the best things we have. We have a community, and if you have a community that's willing to welcome you back, that's the most important thing for you.
Exactly what Pete just said. Having a community that is welcoming the returning citizens. In fact, even giving us the name returning citizens, because at one point we were just called convicted felons. And we all know the negative connotations that come with that. So when we made that step to become returning citizens, that kind of showed us that, oh, our community does care, right? And as far as IRA goes, if I wanted to say anything towards, other geographical areas who may or may not have IRA laws or something similar to it in place, and if I can, sway you to petition your council or whomever, make the laws in certain places, it would be simply to say it worked. Like it worked. IRA is a success. Though you have some people who try to denigrate it, try to undermine it, or minimize the success, you can't deny the numbers. And they say numbers don't lie. And we work in an industry where data runs everything. So if I show you the numbers, you can't refute them. So that's where you take what you see going on in DC and you try to apply it in other places. You use the language, you use the data, and now they can't, opposition opposes things sometimes just because they get paid to. Let's just call it that, right? But for the most part, they don't win because they don't have real merit to combat what we're presenting. And I've seen and I've talked to people from across the country who are trying to get second look laws implemented, and they saying that they're making headway. They're saying that they're optimistic about it, and ask for advice and things of that nature. And so, this is a extension of that for me to say it works, and do your research, look at the data, look at the language, and just use it and to present it to your council or legislators. And I'm sure that at some point they will have to relent because it is what it is. It's successful.
Oh, and I also want to add to what Gene said. He made a important point, and I think other states, it would be beneficial for them to like how they can learn to insulate themselves from knee-jerk reaction when you have like one bad apple that may come home, and they're in the media, they got that if it bleeds, it leads, that type of mentality, and if they see, I told you we got to be more tough on crime, you let them out, and but then the fact remains that for every one bad apple, you have a whole tree of great fruit, that's waiting, for the opportunity to do that's out here already that's doing great things. And another thing why I love about FAM, because they have a platform for success stories. They highlight successful reentry. Like people don't have to be on a documentary or be working for Georgetown or whatever to be a success. I think just being home free for a substantial amount of time is success in its own, knowing the challenges that you have to face as a second-class citizen when you're a felon, and just those private moments of a guy being a dad or taking care of his mom or just maintaining the job. There's countless success stories, that don't get amplified. So I just think that's a real key thing, like other states, like, because we have a lot of yes, there have been a few guys that made some bad decisions, but we had councilmen that already knew, like, okay, well, that's the law of probability. You got 100 guys, okay, one guy mess up, we understand that, but we're not gonna let that one person ruin the other opportunities of the other 99 men and women that need a chance.
Yes, well said, everyone. And I just wanted to say that, excuse me, from making the film, I noticed two other things, which is, first of all, there were two stages of the bills. It was IRA and then it was Second Look Act. And so IRA kind of laid the groundwork for a second chance. And then they saw that it excluded so many people because it gave the chance to petition for freedom for people up to 18. committing the crime up to age 18. And then they expanded it to 25 with the second bill. So they kind of took what they could get the first time, and then they expanded it. And then the second thing was that they took the trouble to say the nature of the crime can be considered, but is not the only thing, because we know how often that comes up, and then people want to say, well, horrible crime, closed book, overlooking decades of change. And so I think that was another key to passing the successful bills.
Thank you all. And I promise I did not write Coley's answers. I did not script them, but he raised a good point about the platform FAM gives and has for people to share their stories. And to anyone listening who has a story that they think they'd like to share, please email stories@fam.org. That's stories@famm.org. And thank you for Coley. But again, I didn't script that. So I want to bring in Wynette again on this. And this is a question for everyone on the panel. And we'll start with Wynette because I think the answers will be coming from two different perspectives. But what did you learn in making this film? You've made a lot of documentaries in the past and you've been in this work for a while now. But what did you learn specifically while making this film?
Well, I always learn a lot. And I think one thing here is that I really saw the range of the human heart, that a person in one person in one lifetime could go from doing something that, we all agree is not something that can be allowed to happen, murder. And then to come out and be, so extremely thoughtful, intelligent, someone that you want by your side, that is all possible, because that's not the usual story that we hear, right? If someone is evil, we put them in a box, and say they're hopeless. And yet it's such a, that's the narrative we're trying to change, that people aren't that black and white. They're complex. They can grow if given just the slightest opportunity, but those opportunities I think are important. Every one of these men talked about people along the way who helped to mentor them behind bars and what a difference it made for them, and family support, opening the window to don't listen to how you're, don't take how you're treated as a sign of who you are. So that was something that, I already felt that way, but I could really see how much one person can encompass in their lifetime.
I know for me, one of the things that I learned that I had more empathy than I thought I had, because I empathize with a lot of people, but just seeing the film and going through it, I got a better understanding of who I am as a person, and more so what I want to become as a human. So that was one of the most important things that I learned about myself in this film. I learned a lot about myself because I seen the journey that Gene went through, the journey that Shaka went through, and I went through my own journey, but it kind of like taught me more about empathy and more about myself. How I really learned to be compassionate to the next person.
Yeah, I think the most profound thing that I learned, and it's similar to what Anthony just spoke on, is that I learned that my journey can be totally different from someone else's journey, right? Whether it's better, whether it's worse, but just totally different. But yet the journeys can still lead to the same place, right? Without judgment, without ostracism. Like you can show up at the same place, have a similar journey, but because we're different people, and by people I mean all of us on this call, we're different people. However, we are walking in the same world. At the end of the day, we're in the same world, so we share the same space. But oftentimes we forget that because the world is huge and everybody's life is caught up. Everybody is caught up in their own life until you actually get a chance to sit back and reflect. Watching the film actually gives me or gave me the opportunity to reflect. and I spoke on, you know, how Carly's journey, you know, moved me, but moved my family. So I learned something from that. It really stood out. Like my family has gone through what they've gone through with my incarceration, but yet it still gave them the same level of, as Anthony said, empathy to feel the way they felt towards Carly, right? And I learned that, like, as long as we keep that as our foundation, we can actually spread love to everybody. But most importantly, we will always be a support system for other people coming behind us because we know the journey. We know the journey, and that's what I learned most from the film.
I think what I learned most was and it really surprised me because even it's something that I learned that even as being a college student while I was inside of prison, right? But it's the power of stories, you know, to see it through the documentary. Like it's one thing to read about storytelling, right? But to never to actually see the effect of a good story being told, and the connections, like when Travis and when and I went to for the film festival, and and I met a guy who actually won the film festival, and he sent me a message and he was like, "Man, I'm happy I won, but honestly, I think that y'all documentary should have won it." And other people like didn't even know me how they was crying, shedding tears, and the connections that you're able to make. You can read, logic, you don't, it's so bland, when you're just looking at data like numbers and stuff like that. But when you really get to the character, the humanistic side of the story is relatable, like Gene said. At the end of the day, like he said it perfectly. Like, we got different journey. We're on different journeys headed to the same destination in life. And it's through those stories, how the connection, the human connection, and like I say, I'm just grateful for the platform to be with Gene and Pete, myself, and we both shared, we both in solidarity in the thinking that our story is a reflection of countless other stories inside. So if people related to our story, how they it's so much untapped potential. It's so many beautiful stories of not just trials, but great triumphant victories, and people maintaining their humanity inside of a most inhumane place. And our story will get other people curious about, well, if Gene and Anthony and Cody are such great guys, let me give this guy a chance that's still inside. And I'm grateful for that.
Thank you all, and Cole, that's a good segue how you ended your question into my next question, which is again for everyone, and we'll start with Lynette. What do you hope the average viewer, be it they watch it at one of the film festivals or they watched it over the weekend or at one of the screenings that are coming up, hopefully throughout the country in the coming year, what do you hope people take away from this film?
Well, the first biggest hope, and it seems to be happening, is that people see these guys as humans, just like all of us. Simply that we've all been through a journey. I do want to add that I know these guys have suffered a lot. They've been through a lot of hard times, and I have never heard anything bitter from them, which I find really amazing. I feel that I could never have survived like they did, would never be so unbitter. So it's quite inspiring, and I hope people take that away, as well as seeing the film as a blueprint for change of the system. How do you get more people out? Give them a second chance. And then specifically, we do have a lot of details about how these bills were passed. So I hope it's even kind of a toolkit for how you get second chance laws passed. And just to add one thing, Travis Edwards was the cinematographer and editor of this film. We were very much a team. This film would not be made without him. He's actually behind the scenes right now, switching cameras. But I just wanted to give him a shout out.
I know for me, I just believe one of the most important things and I don't mean to hop back, but it's something. I went to an hour hearing today, and one of my a good buddy, he was grand immediately released today, and they spoke of how well he been doing for the past 15 years, not getting in trouble, any of those things. And I thought to myself, if people was to see more guys like him, like me, and that's one of the most important things. I feel as though people don't, they see things that happen around them in the news and things like that, and they kind of form a judgment of who a person is without really getting to know a person. So that's one of the most important things I think people should always do. Get to know someone, because it's easy for us to judge a person without really knowing them. And most of the stuff that goes on is with kids. And we all know your mind, as the Supreme Court said, your mind is not fully developed till you're 25. So give a person a chance. Maybe they'll show you something you didn't believe they could show you. So that's just one of the things I believe in.
Yeah, one of the biggest takeaways that I hope people get from watching this film is that redemption is a real thing. So many people are thrown into prison to never see the daylight again. And as long as they're not seeing the daylight, the story behind them will be what sent them to prison, not what they're doing now. So that whole theory of lock them up and throw away the key, that's what that means. They throw away the key. They're basically throwing away you. So you don't get a chance to, show the world that you have changed, rehabilitated, educated yourself, got a degree, mentored other younger incarcerated people. Myself, when I talk to people about, what happens in prison, the full spectrum, they be surprised at some of the things that I tell them when I say mentor. Then how you mentor? Ain't no kids in there. And I'm like, no, you can mentor the younger men, right? And the programs, and even something as small as watching a particular TV show. I made a joke to someone the other day about I had bought one of my colleagues' daughters Girl Scout cookies. And then I went on to tell a story about how I was buying Girl Scout cookies when I was incarcerated. They were like, Girl Scout cookies? And I'm like, yeah. And I always said to myself, only if people can see not only someone buying Girl Scout cookies in prison, but who is selling the Girl Scout cookies, right? So, and because we have this such tough persona that's thrown on us that when we get to share that, people can see it and be like, oh, these are people. This is not a convicted felon. He's not a criminal. That's just some of the things that he did. You're not the sum of your mistakes. And so I think that's the biggest takeaway. And I do believe that District of Second Chances have depicted that superbly, actually, because if I wasn't in the film and I didn't know any of this, I would have walked away with some of the things. When I'm seeing Coley talking to Georgetown students, right, in prison, you know how many people have no idea that you can do that, whether you were in federal prison, whether you were in DC jail. So many people have no idea that you can do these things. Even the interview that I had with Manette, I was still in federal prison. So, some of these things you would think that not only what we can't do, but we're not interested in doing. Like, we only in prison to further our criminal career. Like, it's just ridiculous and insulting, actually, to have that thrown upon you. So I think that people to take that and like learn, at least take that and learn from it, and give them a different perspective, and they can look at other incarcerated people without prejudging them first and give them an opportunity to show them who they are. So I think that that's something that they should learn.
Well, thank you. Thank you all. And it's been such a pleasure talking with you all today. Thank you, Pete, Gene, Coley, and Wynette for taking time. I think District of Second Chances, from my unbiased or biased opinion, is really a fantastic film. I think it so perfectly captures why it is that we need second sentencing, not just here in DC, but across the country. So certainly, go to the FAM website, learn more about how you can watch District of Second Chances again. How you can be, maybe host a screening on your own later on. I think the influence and impact of this film, we're only just starting to see the beginning of. I think this will have, a really profound impact across the country. So I thank you all again for watching. Thank you to the panelists. And of course, thank you to Travis Edwards, the cinematographer and editor of the film, who's helped run things tonight, and Alexis Mitchell, who helped out as well. Thanks so much, everybody, and I hope you all have a wonderful night.
Thank you for having us here, man.
Thank you for allowing us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
And thank you, Travis.